Hello. Like 50% of the audience.
That's very dramatic walk-on music. So here we are. Thank you all for coming. We should explain who we are and what we're doing here. So my name is Tim Lindsay. I'm the CEO of an organization called D&AD. We run an award show and are actually an education charity as well. And yesterday, we judged the D&AD Impact Awards. The award ceremony is tonight. And my colleagues on my right here were all judges at this final round of judging yesterday. Impact is about celebrating, stimulating, and awarding work that kind of seeks to do well in the world, that seeks to do well by doing good, in Lord Leverhume's immortal words. And we're here to tell you about some of the work we judged yesterday, and why we liked it, and some of the projects that the panel are themselves committed to and involved in. So I'm going to get them to introduce themselves, actually. But we have Haiyan Zhang, who works currently with Microsoft in the UK. We have Jessie McMillin, who's with Lyft. And then Thomas Kolster, who is a writer and a broadcaster and a general supporter of good causes. Yeah. So why don't you just talk a little bit about yourselves and what you're doing now, and just to introduce yourselves to the audience. Hi. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. Hi, I'm Haiyan, and I'm Innovation Director at Microsoft Research in the original Cambridge in the UK.
The proper one.
It's pretty proper, yeah. And my work, has I've done quite a fair bit of work in kind of social impact. So before joining Microsoft, I co-founded a platform called OpenIDEO, which is all about bringing together. We've got about 150,000 people logging online to tackle challenges for social good, using design and creativity as their tools, and learning along the way. And since then at Microsoft, I've been focusing on health, and also education as a portfolio of projects that support people in the community.
Jessie.
Yeah, Jessie McMillin. I head up the creative group at Lyft and oversee pretty much everything that's happening there, from kind of marketing and advertising initiatives to things happening in product and in the in-car experience. Yeah, and I think this is really relevant for Lyft right now because we're just interested in the ways that our brand can continue to contribute interesting initiatives, bringing the idea of transportation and urban living and how we might impact that in a positive way. So something that's pretty close to our mission right now as a company. So excited to be here.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Cool.
Thomas.
And hi, Thomas. Ex-advertising guy. Wrote a book a couple of years ago called Goodvertising, which was rallying cry to the advertising industry to be more responsible and sustainable. Sometimes I say we've made you buy shit, but we can also make the world better. So that's sometimes some of the stuff that I work with. A couple of years ago, I launched a platform called Where Good Grows. And the whole idea was really looking at impact in a different way, because so often we spend so much time developing new initiatives, but why don't we recycle the initiatives that are already there, that are already impactful? Didn't go too well. For many reasons, but so always kind of trying to look at new ways and for kind of advertising and branding to be more sustainable and responsible. So that's kind of some of the work that I do.
Yeah, which is very much what Impact is about in a nutshell. So all three of the panelists are perfectly suited to it. So just to explain what happened yesterday, the Impact Awards is divided into 12 categories, which are actually loosely based on the UN global goals, loosely. And we invite entrants from the worlds of advertising and design and technology and innovation and entrepreneurship. We sat and looked at the shortlists yesterday and selected white pencil winners and black pencil winners. So in our world, we award these pencils. They're very highly valued by the creative community. And the winners will be announced tonight. But I'm just going to ask each of the panelists about the categories that they judged. So, Haiyan, starting with you, which was health and wellness, I believe. How was it for you? What about the work you saw? Picking out any highlights?
I mean, it was what an amazing category. You know, I think there's been an explosion of new ideas in creative advertising, in technology around supporting communities with health and wellness, and we definitely saw that in the category. There was such a diverse range from advertising campaigns, sort of empowering young kids with disability to turn them into superheroes. There were products, so new kinds of wearables, products to support people with sight impairment, and new kinds of sort of marketing campaigns as well. So it was really a great category. Yeah.
We have that video, which we'll show in a second, actually. Yeah, and Jesse, you appropriately judged Urban Living.
Yeah.
It was slightly light on entries, but any comments? Initial comments?
I mean, obviously, for us at Lyft, Urban Living is really interesting because how we navigate and connect in our modern spaces is something that we're thinking about every day. And I thought the work was really interesting because it brings together a lot of the ideas of the things that are challenging us, from air quality and kind of trying to tackle that to innovations in light, and how do we bring some of the comforts that we have in a lot of the parts of the world that don't have difficulty into some of those that are developing. So some really interesting things, from product type of innovation development through to one that didn't make it that I thought was fun, that I think I mentioned yesterday, which was a cricket habitat, which was kind of interesting.
Go on, explain what that was to the audience.
Oh yeah, well, it was funny. It was the initiative was to familiarize Western culture in the States and in Europe with the idea of insects as a protein part of our diet, which in a lot of the world, it's a big thing. In Western culture, it's really kind of like, whoa, what am I doing? Yeah. And so they had made a structure that was kind of this artistic, interesting structure that was a cricket farm, and then they had partnered with chefs in order to deliver meals based on cricket flour and other things, which I was like, interesting, really. So that was the kind of thing that we got to see from the judging panel.
Sounds like we should have brought that one back for rejudging. Yeah. And Thomas, you judged environmental. How was that?
Exactly. A good segue with the food.
Yeah.
Sustainable food. I mean, for me, and kind of seeing this movement develop, I think a lot of brands started out with kind of doing stuff in the profit space, moving into kind of CSR and of course marketing stuff. And now I think the big challenge is, of course, for businesses to become sustainable businesses. So I was, in so many ways, just disappointed about the level of the work and the amount of the work, in the sense that it really deals with, the stuff we eat, how we dress, how we live. And I think there could have been so many more interesting ideas from the community, and I think that's a challenge for next year. That said, though, there was some interesting stuff. We're going to see a video very soon that is tackling one of the biggest issues that I think we even see in the US quite a bit. So water scarcity up in California, and that of course have many faces. I've been in Mozambique not too long ago, visited a hairdresser. She had one bucket of water for all her customers during that whole day. Definitely don't want to be the last one that get your hair cut there. The water's not too nice. But what they did was actually reinvent the shower, and I think that's a great thing, because a lot of sustainability stuff is about changing behaviors, and we are super stubborn. And one of the things that I absolutely love is my morning shower. So what they came up with was a new type of shower that used kind of high pressure, so it could save 70% of the water used in our daily showers without us having to change behaviors. So some of that stuff fascinated me quite a bit.
Very good. We might as well, let's watch it, shall we?
Yeah.
We've got the film here. Can we play that, Siobhan?
Imagine being totally embraced by water from the moment you step into your shower. Imagine an experience with water so moving, you never want to step out. Your skin feels soft and hydrated. Nebby is about experiencing water in a way that you never have before.
To innovate on the shower experience, we had to look outside of the current industry and approach the engineering problem from a completely new angle. The last half-century of nozzle technology has completely changed what we can do with droplet sizes and distributions. However, this technology has only been applied to very specialized fields, like rocket engines and medical devices. We use these same tools and technology to develop Nebbia. What we do is atomize streams of water into millions of tiny droplets. By doing this, we can achieve 10 times the surface area of water compared to a regular shower while using a fraction of the volume.
We put Nebbia to the test. On average, Americans take about 8 minutes to shower. With a normal shower, that's over 20 gallons of water. With a Nebbia, it's only 6. That's 70% less water.
We built Nebbia to be easy to install. You simply unscrew your existing shower and screw on Nebbia with a wrench, some plumber's tape, and included adhesive. You don't have to call the plumber or break tile. In addition, Nebbia slides up and down a couple of feet, pivots at an angle, and includes a portable wand, which you can position wherever you choose. Nebbia provides a totally new and refreshing shower experience. We partner with world-class design firm BoxClever to create a design that is both beautiful and intuitive, yet offers a totally new degree of adjustability. On top of that, the water and energy savings just make sense. We've set out to build a company that will transform the way we interact with water over the course of the next few decades.
It's a great example of something that I think we would all agree about, which is where the kind of sustainability agenda and the commercial agenda intersect and become the same thing, then good things start to happen. And that is primarily actually what Impact is set up to promote and stimulate. Do you have any thoughts about that? I'm turning to Jesse now about long-term commercial projects that seek to leave a decent footprint and not use up the Earth's resources in that way. Where does Lyft sit in that sort of regard?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's something that we think about a lot because things like pollution and air quality are a big subject that we're thinking of. We have a large network of drivers that are in the cities that we operate in, and so how can we bring things like electronic vehicles into that scenario so that we reduce that type of thing? Long term, how are things like autonomous vehicles going to change the landscape of how people move around and what that means as it impacts the environment? So I think it's imperative that companies think that way. I think we have a responsibility, and we're seeing that more and more. I think that consumers are demanding that from businesses. But even in the short term for us, one of the initiatives that we have right now that I find really exciting is a feature called Round Up and Donate in our app that allows for a passenger to elect a charity, and it rounds up the fare of every ride that they take and donates that back to the charity. So kind of interesting ways at all levels, whether it's in the product or in the long-term vision for the company, that we can have impact small and large.
And Haiyan, you're a developer and an inventor almost. Do your projects have a commercial aim? Are they intended in the end to make money for Microsoft, even as they're doing good?
I think Microsoft's in a really interesting place in that we've just had this new CEO come in, Satya Nadella, and he's very much focused on empowering individuals, empowering communities through technology. And so I think Microsoft, there's a culture of bottom-up innovation. So as individuals, as teams, we're creating new kinds of thinking around how new technologies and Microsoft technologies can improve people's lives. So at the moment, I'm working on a project around cystic fibrosis. So we're taking some IoT technology and integrating that with a cystic fibrosis medical equipment so that when kids have to do their daily physiotherapy, their daily medical treatment, they can play a video game as part of the using the medical equipment. So it's no longer laborious. They're actually, they can play things like Minecraft, for example. And then we're partnering with a children's hospital in London to deploy this with families around the UK for a long-term study. Now, this is leveraging new technology that Microsoft is great at. It's leveraging potentially existing Microsoft products, such as the cloud, such as some of our Xbox portfolio. But it's also partnering with external experts, the hospital, to really bring to bear their expertise into this new kind of area. So I would say that it's a new kind of business model for Microsoft. It's not directly generating one-to-one revenue, but it's about kind of how do we enhance the community and therefore profit from that in the mid to long term.
Oh, yeah, very interesting. And Thomas, I expect you would agree with the proposition that business has to save the world because government can't or won't.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think technology is, of course, one of the bigger drive of change we've seen. But if you look at what's going to impact business over the next 30 to 40 years, those are obviously some of the sustainability challenges. We talked about urbanization. I mean, resource scarcity is a big one. Climate change, just the whole, population growth we're seeing right now. Which I was just in Istanbul not too long ago, where you're just kind of stuck in traffic for so long time. So I think all of these things are something where businesses need to step up and address it, and I think they're starting to do it. And I think for the whole discussion around purpose, how to navigate that thing between profit and purpose, and luckily we are seeing more and more cases. Of course, the kind of poster boy of sustainability is often mentioned Unilever, where they have Keith Weed, their global CMO, said, of course, now they the sustainable brands grow double as fast and now make up half their growth. So I think the business case is there.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to show another video now. One of the things we looked at was it's quite well known. You'll all have seen it, but it's worth seeing again. Fearless Girl, which was State Street Global Advisors, quite a sort of innovative fund manager, but not the financial services world is not known for this kind of project, and it's done fantastic things. Let's have a look at it, and then you guys can say what you thought of it.
The problem is this: women are not making it to the top of any profession anywhere in the world.
Today is International Women's Day, and one Wall Street firm is marking the occasion by placing this statue, a little girl staring down the iconic charging bull.
Powerful little
girl.
Defiant, with her hands on her hips, challenging the status quo.
Representing women's daily experience of having to face a ton of bull.
And the fact that the industry has acknowledged this fund, she, is quite important.
Und dem Fearless Girl. 겁없는 소녀란 이름에
De la niña sin miedo.
People young and old are flocking to her.
Fearless Girl has also become a broader symbol of female empowerment.
19,000, 28,000, 30,000 people have already signed a petition to keep the statue here longer.
The Fearless Girl will be allowed to remain at her post.
This statue has crystallized this moment in history.
The statue epitomizes the sentiment of our time. Women will no longer remain silent.
My generation fought for the women of today, so that little girl is saying a lot.
So, without revealing whether that won an award tonight, it did actually. It'd be interesting. Did you vote for it? Haiyan, do you like it as a project?
I mean, I love it. I'm going to go and take a picture with her a little bit later today.
Okay, good, cool.
It's amazing. I mean, as a marketing campaign, it's successful, but as a symbol that kind of has cultural resonance. So it's really transcended that original campaign and become sort of this culture-changing phenomenon, which is really amazing. It's something you can't plan for, definitely, and
that's true.
so great.
Thomas, did you vote for it?
Definitely. I think it shows a couple of things. It also shows the thing that we talked about just before, the changing face of capitalism in so many ways, that you measure in diversity and more diverse boards perform better.
Yeah.
Same thing could go with sustainability. So yes, and also the sense that you know, that it demonstrates true action and inspires people. Yeah, you know, you can't be touched. You know, you can't not be touched by it. I mean,
yeah. To that effect, I wonder what is the fearless girl of sustainability then. I think that's the challenge to the industry.
Too many polar bears out there. Yeah, we need to find a different face on environmental sustainability. That's for sure.
Yeah. Jesse, you could be controversial and say you didn't like it, right?
No, I definitely voted for it. I mean, for me, I totally agree with everything that was said already, but also flawless execution. I mean, it was just such a well-done idea. I mean, that could have been done so horribly and not had any impact at all. Yeah. And to come up with something that really flipped the idea of what we might say like is out-of-home advertising, but to turn it into something that is more like a piece of art, I think that's just really not easy to do. I think, like Haiyan said, you don't plan for that. It's just kind of all the stars align and somebody makes a move, and when that happens, you're just really lucky. So I think it's those types of pieces of work that come along once in a while.
Really. I love the fact that it is actually true to a part of their brand as well. Although no one knew about it, they had been investing in better gender balanced companies run by, you know, with gender balanced boards. And this kind of just exploded that notion, and now everyone knows about it. It's amazing.
I think one of the things that does raise, though, which was some of the controversy around it, was in essentially that, you know, one of the things that, you know, the advertised story and then everything beneath water level from that iceberg is, you know, what are they doing themselves? And I think some of the stuff that came out of that was how many women did they actually have on their own board? And of course, that is one of the things where they can improve, and people are scrutinizing stuff. So I think that puts more responsibility on us as an industry to fully understand what sustainability is and really kind of hold our clients to very high standards before we go out and do campaigns. But I agree with you. I mean, the fund itself is you know, really important.
It's real. Yeah. How far do you think we've come? This is a really sort of philosophical question, so hey, it might not have a long answer. But how far do you think we've come in the last sort of 5-10 years in terms of business being serious about purpose, in you know, putting purpose, if not ahead of profit, at least alongside it? Do you think it's real progress, Haiyan? Starting with you, or is a lot of it still fig leaves and, you know, greenwash?
I mean, I think we've come a long way. I remember being at IDEO in London, you know, 5-6 years ago, and us starting to have this point of view, starting to talk about purpose and business, and thinking about that as an offering, as an innovation consultancy. How can we introduce this idea of purpose to large organizations? And I think, you know, I've also worked with organizations where the purpose felt a little bit kind of like greenwashing, you know. And I have to say, in recent years, and also some of the submissions in the Impact Awards have, I think, turned over a new leaf. It's really inspirational, some of this work, and I think it's mainly because a lot of the work is grounded in this idea of long-term impact, that it's not just a single campaign, that it has ripple effects, it has lasting value within the culture.
Yeah. Obviously, Lyft has purpose in its mission. Jesse, do you want to expand on that a bit? Does it actually have a mission statement? Does it have a sort of set of defined behaviors?
Yeah, I mean, at the highest level, the goals that I think the two founders set out was to improve people's lives with the world's best transportation. So, like, that idea of humanity and technology has been something that they've tried to embrace from the very beginning, and that's not easy to do in Silicon Valley, for sure. I mean, we get so caught up in the innovation side of it that you lose sight of the people, and I think for our brand, the human side of the equation is really always important for us to consider. What I'm really excited about is I feel like it's maybe taken a long time to get to this point where purpose is valuable to businesses, but it feels like we might be in that kind of phase where the innovation and the kind of tit for tat that businesses have with each other might really start to accelerate. And I think even just in the last 6 months, it seems like a lot of the big stories that you hear about from brands are about kind of the values that they have, the actions that they're taking, the impact that they have in the world. And so hopefully, if we all kind of hold them accountable, even the ones that work inside these brands, then we'll see a lot more of that being the mainstream versus kind of the special little things that happen around the periphery.
I don't want to wade into American politics because I'm English and that would be a mistake, but do you think actually some of the things that President Trump has done have actually accelerated the good intentions in the business community? That's not a very elegantly phrased question. Do you see what I mean? That it actually has had unintended consequences as far as Trump is concerned.
As the only American on this panel, he's being put on the spot.
You know, I mean, I think politics is always such a tricky conversation inside of a company, right? But I think what it's done is it just made everybody be more acute to the things that
I think that's true.
You know? And I think it's challenged a lot of leaders at companies to have to not be quiet, right? And so in whatever way that they can, whether it's the little things they're doing inside of a company or big statements, I think you're seeing it more. And so for sure, I think it had an impact, you know.
Yeah, sure. Thomas. Okay, I'm going to come to questions at the end, if that's okay. Thomas, are you cynical about it, or hopeful, or I mean, you always seem like a very optimistic person.
I am, but you know, I think it has moved. It's a train that's moving. It's moving fast, and even though it is still really tricky to get that purpose right, I sometimes think it's almost like a two-headed purpose monster. You have the kind of strong little monster out here, the bull saying profit, 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 and on the other hand, you have a cute little lamb that's saying, let's do the good thing. I think what is really kind of pushing the envelope at the moment is some of those challenges that companies are facing, you know, rising resource prices. And I think in the car industry, I mean, in particular, you know, we see Tesla, you know, outperforming GM. I think that's an interesting thing. The other day, what is called the former CEO of Ford stepped down, and the guy who's responsible for the driverless car division. So it almost seems like, you know, the future of growth for many of these businesses seems to be in that kind of sustainability space. So that makes me hopeful. You know, the UN Global Development Goals makes me hopeful. It's a good system for businesses to tackle some of these issues and work with them in a profound and exciting way.
That's great. I'm going to show another film, actually, which is hopeful. And actually, it's a sort of D&AD success story. We saw this first thing, the first time we saw it was 4.5 years ago in beta, in prototype. And here it is about to go into kind of full-scale production. So can we play Gravity Light, Siobhan? Thank you.
It causes problem to the baby. Breathing is the problem.
Nilikuwa natutumia mafuta ya 50 shillings.
Is there a way to make light and power without batteries? Gravity Light has a bag which is full of rocks. If I pull this cord, the bag comes up off the ground and we create light as the bag comes down.
It's been 4.5 years in the making.
It uses the force of gravity.
Has the potential to lift people out of poverty.
So kudos to Shell for funding Gravity Light to help try to make the world a brighter place.
Hiyo taa ina umuhimu wa maana sana. Itanifaidi kwa kija mtoto wangu kusoma vizuri na pale.
So that actually, I guess, started as someone's kind of passion project, and here it is, you know, about to go into commercial production, which is great. So that's a neat segue into asking the panel. I'm going to come to you last, Haiyan. Do you have personal projects that you could share? Anything that you're kind of doing, a new book or whatever it might be, Thomas?
Writing a second book at the moment, which is a little bit around the thing about empowerment. I think that is really the next step that's going to happen, that rather than us coming to Africa with our innovations and our solutions, actually giving people the tools and the assets themselves to create that change needed. And I think Gravity Light in many ways does that. So that's one of my pet projects at the moment, for brands to give away that control and command way of looking at stuff and giving people power with a marketing mix. So that's one of my new ventures I'm working on.
Jesse, you probably don't have time, do you?
No. I mean, one of the things that I'm excited about that I'm working on with Lyft is autonomous vehicles. I think is just such a really interesting whole new kind of field of transportation. And for us, I think one of the interesting angles is how do you go there without losing the humanity piece of it, right? Like, we're so used to being with other people in that small kind of contained environment, and if you completely take somebody else out of it, it feels like that could get dystopian really fast. So like, we're really thinking a lot about how do we do that and still keep some amount of connection between people as part of that experience. So.
More time for carpool karaoke.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
James Corden, where are you?
Yes.
Who would have thought James Corden would be a success in the United States? Haiyan, what about you? I know you have a film to show, which is rather wonderful. But
oh, that would be. So more recently, I've been involved with a TV documentary that we're making for the BBC called Big Life Fix. So this is where we're bringing together creatives, technologists to develop individual innovations for a single person. And I think it's been amazing to see how if you make a fix for a single person who might have a disability or an illness, it has huge ramifications across the community, especially with the amplification that the BBC and media can give you. Yeah. So I brought this film that is of an individual that I worked with, Emma, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's when she was 28 years old. And I was able to support her and help her in overcoming some of her symptoms.
Let's see the film, please. Thanks.
Okay, right, I'm going to try and replicate this here. We're off to a great start. I tend to kind of just avoid doing sketching and writing now because it's not really worth it if you get something like that. Anything you could do that would just make my hand do what I want it to do and to be able to sign my name would be an incredible thing.
How do we even just begin to help her overcome this particular symptom of her tremors and helping her be able to regain her writing ability, her drawing ability? So what I'm doing is I'm making a very rough prototype, and what this board does is I can connect into it through these wires, these tiny coin cell motors. So these motors will vibrate. I personally think that what this is doing is it's short-circuiting whatever feedback loop there is between the brain and the hand that's causing the tremors. So the idea is if you are distracted by the vibration, are you able to write better? I don't know. I don't know.
It's affecting something. I don't quite know what's happening.
I'm on to something, right? I'm on to something.
Woo! Woo! Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
It makes me forget that I have a tremor. I haven't drawn one of them for a long time. I've actually just written my name for like the first time in ages.
I can't believe it.
Mum, it's called the Emma.
Oh, brilliant.
It's got my name on it. Right.
Very fabulous. Absolutely. We have 6 minutes left, I think. So would anyone like to ask any questions? There's a gentleman there who had a question. Grab a mic.
Yes, a follow-up on your question about politics. But really what I want to go to is the sustainability goals. And in particular, the climate situation where 192 countries, I believe, have signed on to the Paris Accords. And the French were here last week, and there were all kinds of meetings with the UN. And I think that that is obviously one of the biggest issues confronting mankind today. And even though there are a couple of, well, maybe one outlier country
I think
in this, two? Oh, there are two.
I can't remember who the other one is.
But. Two
Probably
outliers.
North Korea and the US.
Let's go with the 192 and do something to reduce carbon. Because as the German scientists have said recently, if you burn it all, you melt it all. So let's reduce carbon.
Oh, yeah, let's do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, impossible to disagree with that. Do you have any comments? Well, we all know about that. Yeah. Any other questions about some of the projects you might have seen or anything else? If not, we can all get out of class early. Oh yeah, hi. Sorry. Yeah. Just grab a mic. Cheers.
Hi. Question for Lyft. I imagine you have two audiences, and drivers and riders. Do you think about one impact story and one brand story for both of them, or are they kind of separate efforts and separate stories of how you have a brand narrative to those audiences?
You know, I mean, I think they're definitely very different audiences because they have really different goals and needs. So we're kind of considering them, I think, as two pretty specific ways that we talk to them. On the driver's side, a lot of times it's, as you can imagine, a lot more economic. Like it's about, in whatever way you need to, powering your kind of own entrepreneurial economic kind of motivation. And on the passenger side, there's obviously just, you know, needing to get somewhere. I think what we've seen, which is interesting where the two come on top of each other, is that piece of the connection, that the feeling that you have that's a little bit different than the things that you might be accustomed to. Like, obviously, in New York, taking a taxi, most of the time you're probably not considering your taxi driver as somebody that you have anything in common with or would ever have a meaningful conversation with. And we see in our experience, because it's different, because you're getting a regular person who's the driver who might have a lot of other things that they're doing, that connection between the two people in the vehicle is something that is meaningful and interesting. And actually on the driver's side, they say they enjoy driving more because they're treated like somebody who's not just a kind of robot behind the wheel. And on the passenger side, I think they just feel like the experience is warmer, right? So there's areas like that where things overlap, but in a lot of ways we're trying to think about the two audiences and how we elevate both at the same time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm being told to wrap up, I think. So I'd urge you, I don't know whether your tickets to Advertising Week include entrance to the Impact ceremony tonight, but if they do, come along, because it'll be a great show, hosted by Hassan Minhaj, which will be good. And you'll see some fantastic work, as well as I hope be entertained. And I'd just like to thank the panel. I think you've been fantastic, and thank you all for coming along. Thank you.